Today we're going to be continuing with our Advent series. Let's see if we can get the next. As you recall, and for some of our visitors, we've been doing lessons on Advent, and this is number 3. As some of you know or recall, Advent means the arrival of a notable person, thing, or event, a very fitting term for December as we lead up to the birth of Jesus. And just for a moment, we have these Advent candles, each one representing the themes of Advent. We began with hope, last week peace, today will be joy, and then there'll be love. And each candle is assigned a color. On the first Sunday of Advent, hope is a purple candle, purple signifying royalty and kingship, symbolizing the kingship of Christ. And last week, week 2, we lit the candle for peace, also purple. The prophet Isaiah in chapter 9, verse 6, tells us about a child that is to be born, and it will be called the Prince of Peace. Purple also representing peace and tranquility that comes with knowing and trusting God. And today, of course, the third week of Advent, we will be lighting, or is lit for us, the pink candle symbolizing joy. And in Latin, they would use the word rejoice to mean the word joy that we use. So pink represents that rejoicing and triumph as we anticipate the approaching Christmas day. And you'll just have to come back next week to find out what the next topic will be. So today we're going to be speaking about joy, or the rejoicing that comes with the light of the world. Now that title, Light of the World, is one of the most profound designations attributed to Jesus, symbolizing hope, guidance, and truth when we choose to follow him. In addition, it symbolizes his divine role in illuminating spiritual truth and dispelling the darkness of sin and ignorance. This concept is rooted in many familiar biblical passages, both from the Old and New Testaments. In the Old Testament, the Jews would light large lamps in the temple during the Feast of Tabernacles, symbolizing that pillar of fire that led the Israelites through the wilderness. Cloud shielded them in the day from the harsh sun, and at night the fire gave them light and warmth. And by the way, we're studying these things in our Wednesday class. So just a plug for that. Join us on Wednesday as we continue that march through the Old Testament, being in the book of Numbers right now. So looking at one of the Old Testament scriptures from Psalms, the psalmist writes, "Your word is a lamp for my feet and a light unto my path." The New Testament, John explicitly identifies Jesus as the light of the world. And so for our reading this morning, I have 5 verses that momentarily flashed during the song. John just goes crazy with that word light. I put all these on one slide, so it's a little bit tight, but hopefully you'll be able to read it. I didn't want to make multiple slides. He begins right from the beginning in chapter 1, verse 5, that Jesus is, the light shines, referring to Jesus, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. A few verses later, he writes, "The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world." And in chapter 3, "But whoever does what is true comes to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that his works have been carried out by God." Then in chapter 8, John continues with Jesus' quote, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." And then in chapter 12, he quotes Jesus as saying, "I have come into the world as light, so whoever believes in me may not remain in darkness." So that metaphor of light, emphasizing that Jesus provides clarity and direction, illuminating our path through the challenges of life. By acknowledging Jesus as our light, we can find peace and assurance, knowing that he brings hope and guidance, as well as joy in times of despair. As mentioned earlier, we will be looking at the joy Jesus brings to us when his light exposes truth, brings clarity and comfort, which John says darkness cannot overcome. So as we get into this topic, I want to retell a Christmas story. I know I've presented this before, and I don't remember if it was during a devotional, if it was up here during a lesson, and can't even remember when it was. And hopefully none of you will remember. And there's lots of visitors here, which hopefully it will be the first time. And it has a setting in Christmas, or at the Christmas season, so I think it's rather fitting. It's become a favorite story of mine, but it begins with tragedy, despair, and suffering. But however, it will end with hope, peace, and joy. And that's the story of the great poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Now, back in the mid-1800s, Longfellow was a celebrated poet here in the United States. But tragedy had beset his family with the death of his wife in a house fire. Longfellow himself was severely burned as he tried to save his wife to extinguish the flames. He grew a beard later in life to hide the scars that were on his face that he received in that fire. But as we fast forward from that fire to Christmas morning in December of 1864, where joy and even hope and peace seemed impossible to Longfellow at that time. He was now a widower, raising 5 children at home, Civil War tearing the country apart, and his eldest son, Charlie, was a second lieutenant in the Massachusetts Cavalry, and he was wounded severely in a battle in Virginia, receiving a bullet that went through his chest and out his back. In those days, that would have been fatal, but Charlie clung to life, eventually recovered, but it was a long and lengthy recovery. So with this backdrop, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, on that Christmas morning in Cambridge, was alone with his thoughts in despair and personal pain. He watched his neighbors through the window trudge through the snow on that Christmas morning. Church bells pealed in Cambridge. Longfellow got up from his seat, went over to his desk, took a blank piece of paper and pen. And he did what Longfellow did best. He began to write. The message of those Christmas bells of peace on earth and goodwill to men mocked the reality of his world. But something stirred in his heart, and he started to write the verses that moved him from despair to hope, peace, and joy. There's 7 stanzas in this poem, and I'm only going to read the first, middle, and end. But he wrote, I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat, of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And thought how, as the Christmas had come, the belfries of all Christendom had rolled along that unbroken song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then, from each black accursed mouth, the cannon thundered in the south, and with that song the carols drowned of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And in despair, I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then pealed the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, and the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. As the bells kept ringing, and with them came to Longfellow a profound realization that the wrongs of the world will fail, and that God on his throne, hope, peace, and joy will prevail. 100 years later, in 1956, that poem was put to popular music, sung by Bing Crosby, that we know are heard the bells on Christmas Day. And if you want to know what Bing Crosby's real name, first name is, Alan and Mitch know. We were talking about that yesterday. Coincidentally, by the way. Back to our topic. When Jesus said, "I am the light of the world," he was revealing his divine role as a guide and source of life for all of humanity. Light in the Bible often symbolizes truth, purity, and guidance. Like a guiding light that we read in Psalm 119, a lamp for my feet and a light unto my path. In a world filled with darkness, confusion, and sin and despair, Jesus stands as a beacon offering clarity and hope. But for some, the idea of Jesus being the light of the world feels more like judgment rather than comfort and joy. Maybe you've heard people say that following Jesus means having all of your mistakes exposed. You may feel like his light is more about condemnation than compassion, but that is not what Jesus meant when he called himself the light. The grace offered to us by Jesus is not judgment. Let's look at the unexpected reaction Jesus had when he was presented with a woman caught in adultery. If we look at John's Gospel, chapter 8, 1 through 11, a familiar passage where the Pharisees were bringing brought to Jesus a woman caught in adultery. They wanted to trap him by condemning her actions according to the law of Moses and to condone the sentence of stoning. But Jesus did not condemn her nor condone her sin. The heart and light of Jesus did not throw stones. Instead, he offered grace and forgiveness. And in verse 7 of chapter 8, he says, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her." Then after Jesus said that, the accusers began to drop their stones and leave. Jesus then said to this woman, "Neither do I condemn you. Go from now and sin no more." The light of Jesus brought hope, peace, and joy to this woman, no longer condemned by the law. His grace and forgiveness were a spotlight to truth and freedom, not a spotlight to shame and punishment. And the freedom that accompanies his light is like being released from a trap. We are trapped by our mistakes, our insecurities, our flaws and sin. But Jesus invites us to step into his light, to be free from these things, to bask in his love. Every human being wants to be loved. Jesus loves you even when you don't love yourself. Even in those darkest moments, you are still loved and accepted by the Christ. Let's turn to Jesus' birth. Being Christmas time, the shepherds tending their flock in the fields were told not to be afraid when the angel appeared. We can read in chapter 2 of Luke, verse 10, "And the angel said to them, 'Fear not, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all the people.'" The great joy was the truth that the God who had seemed so far off had come to them in human form. He was to be called Emmanuel, God with us, as we learned on that first Advent sermon. And then with his death on the cross, the veil of the temple was torn in two, thus forever removing that separation between God and mankind. And it doesn't end there, because we know we continue to experience joy as the resurrected Jesus ascended into heaven to prepare a place for those who follow him. I want to conclude with Psalm 98? See how many times you can find the word joy and joyous in this psalm. Oh, sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvelous things. His right hand and his holy arm have worked salvation for him. The Lord has made known his salvation. He has revealed his righteousness in the sight of nations. He has remembered his steadfast love and faithfulness to the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our God. Make a joyful noise to the Lord. All the earth break into joyful song and sing praises. Sing praises to the Lord with the lyre, and with the lyre the sound of melody. With trumpets and the sound of the horn, make a joyful noise before the King, the Lord. Let the sea roar and all that fills it, the world and all those who dwell in it. Let the rivers clap their hands. Let the hills sing for joy together before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world with righteousness and the people with equity. So although our earthly life may be filled with troubles, we have reason for hope, peace, and joy, because Jesus came the first time and has promised to return for us. We can sing with conviction, joy to the world. The Lord has come, and let earth receive her King. The title, Light of the World, is a profound testament to Jesus Christ's divine mission and his transformative impact on humanity. Through his life, death, and resurrection, Jesus dispels the darkness of sin and offers the light of eternal life to all who believe in him. This is the joy we feel today. The light of Jesus is available to all who choose to search for it. He offers us the chance to let go of fear and to embrace freedom. For everyone here today is the opportunity, 10 class, study, pray with the elders. We can fill the baptismal right behind me anytime when you are ready. So if you have a need that we can help you with, if you want to make your desires known to the body, please come forward as we stand and sing the song of invitation.